Recording is on.
All right, Gene, you want to last time we left off helping out Mo's problem, but Gene, it seems like yesterday as well you had some issues starting up Spring. If you want to share your screen, let's see what you got, and let's try to fix that.
Okay, so my problem was I cloned the card arbitrage repository, and
Hmm.
then when I was trying to start it, just to start the Spring application, just to see what I would get, it gave me some couple of errors, some
Hmm.
null pointer errors, and let me try to run it again and probably expand the terminal.
So you don't want to start it like that. That's going to give you problems.
Okay.
So go and click. It might work. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So you can see like the Hibernate. I don't know if you can see my screen. I don't know if
Okay,
it's
yeah. That's a database connection error.
yeah. So
So,
I've been getting these errors with the service exception, being creation exception, and yeah,
okay,
the
could you
null
minimize this
points.
real quick for me? Okay, and so you're gonna scroll on your left hand side, open up application.properties. Ah, that's why. Okay. Um, I forgot to mention this, but later on, our program will require you to connect to a database because our program, remember, is checking different listings and seeing if there's a difference between what's being sold online and what's being offered on that other website, right? And so, obviously, we don't want to double check listings that we've already looked at, right? And so, how do we know if we've already looked at a listing and if it's within our boundaries? We store it inside our database, right? And so I'll get into how databases work later on, but for now, you can see on line 5, right? It's trying to connect to localhost 3306, which is where your database should exist, and slash card arbitrage. That is what the database name is called. So we have to go ahead and create a new database, and you can see inside the next line, line 6 and 7, um, we're giving it a database username and a database password. Well, you haven't set that yet, right? And that's why it's freaking out. So do me a favor and open up your. I'm not sure if you have like a MySQL Workbench, but
I do
can
have
you
my
start? Yes, yeah. So start that up for me. Perfect. All right, open that up.
so there's the local instance.
Yep. And wait. So, oh, not a big deal. You can restart it if you want, but I wanted to show you something really cool. Um, uh, it's not a big deal, but basically, you can see when you clicked on it, and people in the video can see it. When he double clicked on that big box that's at like, oh, MySQL, it's at localhost 3306, right? So that's exactly what Spring is connecting to. And so that's very cool. Now you have this. Open up a web page real quick for me, like any browser web page.
Trans-
Uh, Actually, not yet. Actually, go back into MySQL Workbench and type in this command: create, all uppercase, create space database space, and then go back to your IntelliJ and let's see what it was called. I forgot what we called it. Card arbitrage, right? Take a look at line 5, right? Do you see how it says card arbitrage? So exactly that. Inside single quotes, and then a comma, a semicolon afterwards. Lowercase, remember?
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Inside, when you're creating a database name, it has to be exact. Yeah, very cool. And go ahead and click the lightning button, not with an I, just a lightning button.
This one.
Yeah, and let's see what happens. Okay, delete the single quotes. Sometimes it doesn't like that. Okay, go ahead and click the lightning button again. There we go. So now you have a database. Very cool. But the thing is, Spring still doesn't know how to log into it. So the database is up and running and it's there, right? But we have to create a user. So delete that line that you just made because you've already created the database. You don't want to make it again. Go on Google Chrome and search up, like a browser or anything, yeah. And search up like how to create a MySQL super user.
Oh, I have to create a new window. Yeah. Can you see that?
Okay. No, I can't, okay, yeah, there we go. Yes, yeah. So just search up like how to create a new MySQL super user.
Super user.
Yeah. Because a regular user might be able, you can adjust what it can do, right? But some users can only view items. Some users can edit items, but we want a user that can view, edit, do whatever it wants, right? Because you're giving Spring access to do whatever you want in your database. Now, obviously, you can limit it, right? So if your Spring is only supposed to read data, then you can create a regular user that can only read or write. So you can assign permissions, but in this case, we're just giving it everything. Now, scroll down a little bit. I don't trust the AI. It might be right. It might not. Just click on. See if you want the first or second link. See what happens. Yeah. So create the first line. Copy the first line. Okay. And paste that. And instead of username, we're gonna put like an actual username. So put like Spring or something. Spring Boot, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, like I replace the username?
Yeah, with an actual username like Spring or Spring Boot or something that you want to give your program. And password, let's randomly generate a password to make it secure. So obviously you're uploading online, but it's okay. It's a local database. No one's gonna hack you, right? Because it's only on your computer. But just go on like go and search up like generate a password for me or something, right? And put it in there.
So there's a
Generate a 16-digit password or something. Character password. Yeah, sure. Whatever you want. For passwordgenerator.org. Okay, just copy that and paste it. I don't know if it will like the special characters. There's some special characters that it doesn't support, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. It might or might not work. Okay, and don't execute it yet. Go back to that. Thing.
Let me try to close this other tab.
Sure. Go into the second tab, because we're done generating the password. Yeah. Copy the second command. Grant all privileges. Whatever. And instead of username, we're going to change it to Spring Boot, right?
Let me call it Spring Boot user. I think that makes sense if I add
the user. You can call it whatever you want, but the first one you also have to change it. And let's go back to that website. There's one more. I think it's like flush privileges, I believe. Scroll down. Yes. Yeah, copy the fifth one. The flush privileges. Let me explain to you what each one of these lines does. The first line creates a new user. Obviously, create user, right? And it sets the password. The second line says grant all privileges on star.star. So what does that mean? So say on your MySQL server, you have multiple databases, right? Because maybe you have, for this project, you have card arbitrage running, but maybe you also have 2 or 3 other projects running as well, right? And so each one of those projects are running on a different database. Hey, I'm not sure if you know this, but your Spring Boot can even connect to multiple databases at once. That's a possibility, right? And so if that's the case, then you have to tell it, hey, which database do you want to give this user complete access to? So star.star means like star, as you guys know, means wildcard. It means everything. So grant privileges on star, right? Means like on all database dot star, which means like for all the subtables as well, to Spring Boot at localhost, so to your user with grant option. So that's what it means. And the third one, flush privileges, means go ahead and instantly apply those privileges to that user so it shows up right away. Go ahead and click the lightning button, and hopefully it gives you all the green check marks. Perfect. So now you have green check marks. Now you're going to go ahead and copy that password because you need to give it to Spring. Okay. And you're going to go back to the IntelliJ. Now over here, it says database underscore username and database underscore password. You could paste it there, but we're not going to do that. The reason why is because later on, Gene, when you make changes to this program, right, you're going to go ahead and commit your username and database and a username and password to the Git tree. And it's insecure, so everyone can see your username and password. And not only that, we're going to fight over it, right? So if I make a change, then my changes are going to override your changes. And then maybe Mo makes a change, and then she's going to upload her username and password there, and it becomes a mess, right? So what we're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click on Card Arbitrage Application at the very top right next to the play button. There's a drop-down menu. Perfect. You're going to click Edit Configuration. All right. You're going to click minus on the plus or minus on the top left hand corner. Remove configuration. Perfect. You're going to click Add New. Yeah, click that new configuration. Either one works. It's the same thing. You're going to click... wow. There's no button for... Go ahead and click Application. That's strange. There usually is one for Spring, but go ahead and click under... Okay, name it something. So name it like Card Arbitrage or something. Yeah, Spring class. Okay, and under main class, go ahead and click the three dots next to it. The three lines next to your main class.
Main class. I'm trying to move.
Main class. It's highlighted in red, but on the very right corner of the red box. Yeah.
Okay. So nothing happened. Okay.
There we go, and click OK. And then under program arguments, no. Click modify options at the, yeah, perfect. And you're gonna find something that says environmental variables. Okay, go ahead and click. Okay, so that's already enabled. Go ahead and exit out of that. So for normal people, if it's not there, you're gonna make sure to check. Oh, you just okay. Go back and click it again. Sorry.
Oh,
modify options. Yeah. You want to click that and make sure that environmental variables are there. Go ahead and on the right-hand corner of that, click on the three dots again. Perfect. And you're going to click plus. And so remember how we said database username, database underscore username, and database underscore password? Go ahead and add those there. So DAT, yep. Okay.
The value was
Spring Boot user. Click another plus. Yeah, that's right.
what's the database name? Right?
Password.
Password.
Yes.
You can paste it, so I have to.
Oh, then you might have to type it manually. Yeah.
Oh, let me see.
No. At the very bottom, remember it's a completely different application. So yeah.
So it's a very hard thing. Maybe if someone, let me see, maybe try to.
It should be copy and pastable. I'm not sure. Try it again. See what happens.
You try to paste it on this.
Yeah.
And then try to copy it from there. So it's dot small j okay. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay, and click OK. Click Apply. Okay, and you can go ahead and click Run. See what happens, and it should go through. You have to expand it so you can read it.
Yeah.
Just to point out, yeah.
Yes.
There we go. See how it
Yeah.
started? Your server started. Yep. So now Spring is able to connect into your database, and later on I'll teach you how to allow Spring to read through your database and edit stuff and all that fun stuff. Yep.
Now, and then, so yeah, this was one of the problems. Another problem I had was when I was trying to access the production API for the one that lists the merchants,
Mhm.
the names of the merchants on
Mhm.
Hopscotch. Yeah, it told me no authorization. I still have it.
Okay. Show me what you got.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see my Hopscotch. I don't know how to.
Oh, okay. Remember, I told you you have to generate a session first. Remember?
So I tried that.
Okay. Show
Then,
me.
when I
Show
tried
me
it,
your session generator. Yeah. So go back to your post. Go ahead and click send. Okay, go into the headers section.
here or down here.
No, at the bottom, the response headers, right? And they should see one that says set cookie.
Yeah.
Copy that. Okay, go back to yours.
Sorry.
The other tab. Sorry.
With the
Should
get.
be more clear. Yes. And then go ahead and go under. Scroll down on headers. It's somewhere there.
Let's see.
Scroll up. Mo, could you look through the request and tell me where I put the cookie? I think it's under authorization or something, but I forgot exactly how theirs works. Yeah, cookie. That's what it's called. Yeah. So scroll all the way down. Create a new header under header 14. Type in cookie. And then paste your cookie right there. And then go ahead and send it again.
I don't know if you
Scroll
can see.
up real quick. Scroll up. Okay. Go into the parameter section. Cache bus. Yeah, type in cache on the left hand side. CACHE.
Oh, cache.
Yeah, and then type in bust on the right side.
What?
A bust. BUST on the right side. Okay, go ahead and click send. So get request. Production. Okay, but no matter. It doesn't. I usually don't want to say this because it's bad practice, but it doesn't really matter because we literally created a Spring project so you don't have to do it manually, right? The whole idea behind it is that Spring will do all this for you. So go back to your project. Okay, go to the controller class. Right, so take a look at what you got. You got the /store list. Scroll down. The /score percentage, right? And the /generate card cache session, right? So you see those three endpoints, right? So go to the very top endpoint, and you can see it's /store list, right? And it doesn't require anything. So go to so actually restart your application because you just made changes. But go to localhost 8080 /store list, and you can see it grabs everything for you. You don't have to worry about it. Right. It takes some time to start up, but yeah, /store list. Make sure it's correctly capitalized. I'm not sure if store is capitalized or not.
I think it is this way. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and click enter. Give it a minute. There you go. Copy all this and then just look up on another website, on another tab, JSON Beautifier. It just makes it look a little easier because this is too much data for our eyes to take a look at, right? Yeah, look at the first one. Perfect. Click on the first link. Yeah. Or actually go back. I don't like this one. Go to the fourth one, I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
The first one's the best one. Just saying.
Okay. I prefer this one personally, but go and click process. And look at that. Right? It gives you a name of all the stores that they have. And so copy any one store that you're interested in.
Let's see. Let's take this. It's the name
Okay,
of a
copy.
hardware in my hometown. That's the same name.
Sure. And then go back to your program. Right? And then go scroll down a little bit. What's your second endpoint? Store percentage, right? So that's how we get the store percentage. And so and it requires a parameter of store name, right? So why don't you, based off of this code, tell me how you would use this endpoint to figure out for Ace Hardware how to get the percentage? Tell me what you think is right, and I'll guide you through if it's wrong. So go back to Chrome and try to figure out how to use that endpoint.
So I think we'll do something like we did yesterday, where I pass in the name of the store here, like as a parameter.
So wait, first, what's your endpoint? Is it still store list or is it different?
Store, yeah.
Yeah.
Store percentage. Okay.
Yeah. Remember, percentage is uppercase. Yeah. Okay, and then what's the next thing to do? Perfect.
Store name. Store name equals to Ace Hardware.
Yes, go ahead.
So should I click enter?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. See how it gives you everything you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, does it kind of explain your question so far? Yes? No?
Yep, it does. It does.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions, Mo, Greg?
Nope.
No? Okay, sounds good. So, why don't we leave off with that, and I will. Could you stop sharing your screen real quick, and then I will go ahead and build onto my project a little bit further. What I'm going to do here today is
could you like solve the ticket on the ticket that you had assigned to us last week?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to get to. I'm going to share my screen, and then we're gonna do our stand up today, and we're going to go from there. So. Can you guys see my screen, by the way? I just want to make sure the recording's getting everything.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So over here, we have our ticket. Create your own feature branch. So you can do this on. Do not commit to main branch. Well, I'm committing to main branch, so it's okay. Get a controller class, and the service class on comment methods get store list and get store percentage. So look at the generate session and basically fill out those two. So I provide some hints, and obviously we just demoed that works. So I'm going to move this over to the Done tab. Very cool. So now I'm going to move this over to In Progress. Match two store names that are not exact. So, for example, if there are two mismatching names, the 1-800-Flowers versus 1-800-Flowers, we want to make sure that our endpoint get stored doesn't just error out right away, right? And so let's go ahead and do that today. All right. So,
Can Can you actually repeat that?
Yeah,
You
sure,
wanted,
no problem.
wanted to match.
So we want to match things so that even if they're not exactly character for character the same, it has to be somewhat the same to match. So over here, I've given two mismatching stores, 1-800-Flowers versus 1-800-Flowers. Do you see how there's instead of the hyphen here, it's just like that, and flowers is capitalized, right? We want to make sure that our endpoint still works and it's more resilient.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is
So-
very, very simple. This is not even like a Spring thing. This is just like a generalized kind of problem, right?
So essentially, we just want equality, but not strict equality.
Yes, that's right. And how would we do that? And I will teach you guys. It's very simple. This is not really back-end development. It's just one of those small things, right? But it's still good practice. So, Mo, quick pop quiz. Our controller class is just for the endpoints, right? But now that I'm making a logic change, right? Because this is how it processes this thing differently, right? What class do I go ahead and go into to make that change?
Um,
And I'll show
you're
you.
talking about in the file. It would be in the controller, wouldn't it?
No, because controllers where we have all the endpoints, this is a logic change, right? We're changing fundamentally how this, when we hit this endpoint, what logic goes on to compare the store names, right? It's a logic issue. So what class would what class would we go ahead and hit in order to make this work? Would it be under the advice, the configuration, controller, dependencies, exception, model, or service class? You can look through your notes, double check, make sure you understand what each of the classes do.
Would it be under configuration?
No, configuration is only for configuring how your Spring Boot works. So, for example, if you want to make sure that you want to set when it times out and when it doesn't, right? Stuff like that. Um, this is a logic change. So, if you look into your notes, remember the service class is where all of the logic works. Is how our program fundamentally works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is where we make our changes. And you can see over here, when we hit our store percentage, right, we get the store name, and we pass the store name into card cache service dot get store percentage, and we pass the store name, right? So this is where the logic lives. So given that we have a store name, right, quick refresher on the code. First thing we do is, and can you guys hear me real quick? I just want to make sure. I think so. Okay, yeah. So the first thing we do is we get all the store rates, remember? And then afterwards, we compare every single store inside all the stores that we have, and we find, and if the name is equivalent to the store that we're looking for, then we return the exchange rate, right? But right now, we don't want to make it so that it's exactly equals. We're okay with something a little bit different, right? So how do we do that? So we can do something like this. Store, string, store name is equivalent to the sell merchant DTO, right? Because this is the actual name of the store, right? This the store name. We can name it correct store name or exact store name, right? This is what card cache gives to us, and this is the store name we're looking for, right? So first of all, we don't really care if it's uppercase or lowercase, so we're going to turn everything to lowercase, right? To lowercase, right? And so over here, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a little cool thing. It's called, what is it called? Jaro Winkler distance. So what that means is that assuming that there are two strings, right? And maybe they're slightly off, a Jaro-Winkler distance will tell us how different two strings are. So let me see if I can find a example online. So if I put reject all, if I put Elon Musk versus Elon Musk, you can see that the Jaro-Winkler distance is 92% similar. It's close, not quite. Now, as I start changing more and more things, it gets less and less similar, right? Even if I delete a space, right? It could be missing characters, and it gets less and less similar, right? Eventually, if I go like this, it's going to be very low similarity. And you can see how the falsehood is false, right? And so a match is considered true when the similarity is 80% or above, right? And so if I do Elon Musk, right, and I put Elon Musk because I don't know how Elon's spelled, this is still considered true because it's more than 80%. If I put Adon Musk, it's still true. Now, if I start putting like Aiden Musk, then it's no longer similar, right? So we're going to use the same thing. Very simple. Someone's already created this for us. It's called get Jaro-Winkler distance, right? We just go ahead and copy this. And we're going to go ahead and import. Okay, we don't have string utils. So remember, we have to look up string utils Maven. And we're going to go ahead and copy. And we're going to go ahead and import, Maven. This into our Maven. So we want, remember, if we take a look at this, right, someone has already coded the Jaro-Winkler distance for us. So we don't have to make it ourselves. It's under what class? It's under something called string utils. And when I put in string utils, Java freaks out because it doesn't know what string utils are. So we have to go ahead and import it. So similar to Mo's project yesterday, I'm going to go under my pom.xml. This is where everything lives, right? All of the dependencies. And under my dependencies tab, I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, right? So I want to have this. And once I upgrade it, and once I update my Maven, it's going to take a minute. Okay, it disappeared. Perfect. I can now go ahead and import the class. Perfect. And so I have the exact store name, and I have the store name that we're matching for, right? And we're going to turn this to a lowercase. Perfect. And so if the distance is greater or equal to 0.8, right, then we're going to return it, right? So now, even if something isn't exactly the same, if it's close enough, it will do the trick, right? So let me go ahead and get started here. Card arbitrage. Well, I don't have it, so. First thing, perfect. This started. I'm going to get the store list real quick, right? I'm going to go ahead and send this over. Perfect. So let's do 7-Eleven, right? And so now I'm going to get the store percentage. And under the parameters, one of the parameters that it's requiring is the store name. And obviously, if I put in 7-Eleven, it's going to work, right? And even if I put in 7-11, it's going to work, right? If I put in 7-11, it's not going to work, right? Because it can't find it. It's too far apart. If I do 7-11, it might still work, right? Yes. So now we kind of have a thing, right? If we find like, hey, that's too invasive, it's too difficult, right? Maybe we can go ahead and upgrade it so that instead of 0.8, we can do like 0.7. So even something that's even a little bit more different, it's okay. And we can actually improve on this a little bit further. We can find the highest Jaro-Winkler distance. So, say for example, we have a store called 7-11, and we have a store called 8-11, right? 11. Say for example, 8-11 is also a store. If someone types in -11, it will go ahead and always return 7-11 and never 8-11, right? So maybe what we want to do instead is upgrade it so that it returns all stores that are within a gyro Winkler distance of 0.8 or above, right? Maybe we want to do that. That might be a better idea. So if we're going to go ahead and do that, why don't we have who's feeling confident today? Who wants to go ahead and take control of this task and tell me what to do, and I'll follow it. Gene, you wanna help us out, and Mo, why don't you guys help us out here and tell me what you guys think the first step should be. Don't be afraid. I won't yell at you, I promise. It's all good. I can give you guys hints along the way, because this is the only way you guys are going to get to learn. It's like, if I tell you the answer, it's going to be like, oh, that makes sense. But when you guys actually encounter the problem, it's going to be like, I've never seen this. You know what I mean?
Okay, so this gyro wrinkler, it calculates the similarities between characters based on the distance. And
that's right.
What are we currently trying to do right here?
So, say for example, there are two stores, 7-11 and 8-11, right? If a user goes ahead and types in -11, the problem is 7-11 is always going to appear because it's the first one on the list, right? 8-11 is never going to appear. So we want to make it and update our endpoint so that if there is two stores that are, so we want to return a list of all stores that are above 0.8 in similarity. So it's not just the first one, it's all stores that are considered a quote-unquote match.
Is this something that can be done in an if statement?
Yes, but like how, if you were me right now sitting in my chair, how would we go ahead and implement that change? What would be the first step?
Can we use like an or operator in the if statement?
Before we even jump into the logic behind it, we're making a few changes, right? Because beforehand, what were we returning? We were returning just a simple JSON, right? Just one JSON. Now we're returning an array of JSONs, right? So how do we change the response from one JSON to an array of JSONs? What would be the right way to do it?
So we have to return a list, right?
Yes, a list, yeah. But how do we change it from a exchange rate DTO to a list of different items?
So so next, so in the exchange rate DTO, I think we return a list that returns objects of
Yes,
with the type exchange DTO.
that's right. Okay, so you're very close. That's correct. The only problem is inside exchange rate DTO, the way we structured it is that there's only one object, right? So what we might want to end up doing instead is we can go ahead and we can create a new object here. And I'll go under model, right? And I'll create a new object called exchange rate DTO list, right? Add. Okay. And inside here, what do I put on line 12? Well, if you were me, what would you put?
So will we create a list object?
Perfect. A list of what?
A list of
JSON?
a list of the cell matches.
Not quite. What are we returning? We're not returning a list of sell merchants. What are we returning?
Oh, you're returning a list of percentages. Oh, yeah, a list of. I think a list of exchange DTO objects.
That's
Exchange rate
right.
DTO.
Exactly, right? Because instead of just one exchange rate DTO, we're returning a whole list of them. So, yeah. So we can do like merchants, right? That's what we're going to call it. Perfect. Okay. So now that we have this new object called exchange rate DTO, how do we make it so that this returns an exchange rate DTO list instead? Tell me what line and where to put it.
So in line 45, we
Mhm.
have to return a list of the exchange.
Right? So we're returning this new list instead. Perfect. And obviously, correspondingly over here, we're also going to change it to the list, right? Okay, looks good. Now, we used to only return one exchange rate DTO. How do we make it so that instead returns this new object, the exchange rate DTO list? How do we do that?
So in line 46, it will be
46. Okay, yes.
so it will be lists, and then the exchange rate DTO list will be in a what are they called?
So wait, tell me exactly what to type in, like list or exchange. Like what do you want me to type in?
I'm trying to look at what the method gets to a percentage is returning. So it's supposed to return a list.
Right, but here's a little hint. We just create the list inside here. We just created the list inside here, so you don't have to worry about that.
So we are also will. So I think you have to create the object merchants there.
That's right. So how do we tell me what to type in for that? Are you stuck? If you need help, let me know. I can tell you. But
I'm trying to think. Do we have to create a new object like exchange DTO list merchants equals to new, or we just
perfect? Yeah, you're mostly there. So we create a new exchange rate DTO list, right? So what happens is we start this off and we create a exchange rate DTO list object. Now the object is created, but there's nothing inside the list yet, right? So when we create this object, this list is basically empty, right? And so as we go ahead and we look through and traverse through each one, if the distance is greater than or equal to 0.8, what happens, right? What do we do, right? Assuming that it's a match, what do we do?
So we return exchange DTO list.
We don't return it yet because there could be more merchants that all match. That, right? So we want to return a list. If we just return it right away, then we're only going to get that one store, right? We want to make sure that every single merchant that is quote-unquote matching, we return. So how do we do that? You have any ideas, Mo? What about you?
Having a clue.
No clue? All right. I'm going to tell you guys. So we have a new list, right? And this is going to be all the merchants that match, right? So inside here, inside our exchange rate DTO list, we're going to do .get merchants .add, and we're going to add that new merchant here, right? So we're going to do add. So first of all, we're going to do new. I forgot what it was called. Sorry. One moment. Okay, there we go. Exchange rate DTO. Exchange rate DTO equals new exchange rate DTO. So merchants, right? So now we have an exchange rate DTO of the merchant that we were talking about that matches. We want to go ahead and add that to the list of merchants that match. Does that sort of make sense so far? Yes? I feel like I feel like I'm losing you guys a little bit.
It it makes sense. It's just it's a lot for me personally, if I'm being honest. I'm struggling to keep up.
Gotcha.
I'm only understanding pieces, but not most of what's going on here.
Gotcha. Okay, let's take it from the top. So right away we have a store name, right? A name of a store that we're trying to match, right? And so it may not be exact. It could be, it might not be, right? So the first thing we do is that we're going to go ahead and get all the store rates in this. So all of the stores and what the rates are, right? So this method just goes ahead and does that for us. And what does it return? It returns a card cash percentage response DTO. So let's take a look at what's inside here. Inside here, there's a list. And inside of the list, it says it's a list of what? Of sell merchant DTO. And inside this DTO, it tells us, okay, this is the name of the merchant, the percentage that they're willing to offer, the limit, so the upper and lower bounds of the limit, right? As well as the image of the gift card, right? So now that we have a list of every single gift card that Card Cash allows us to sell, we're going to go ahead and look through every single item, right? So remember how inside here, a list of every single item that, or of every single merchant that Card Cash allows us to purchase? We're going to loop through it. We're going to say, hey, for each item inside this list, give me the sell merchant DTO object and get me the name, right? So inside, give me the name of each merchant that Card Cash allows me to sell and turn it into lowercase, right? Because we don't care if it's upper or lowercase. And then afterwards, we're going to compare that store name, right, with the user's inputted store name, right? And so we're going to compare those two, and if the distance between the two is greater than 0.8, then we're going to say, hey, that's a match. That's what we're looking for. And so if it's a match, then we're going to go ahead and say, hey, for our response back, this is a list of all the merchants that matches our criteria, right? So we're going to say, hey, in this object, go ahead and create an exchange rate DTO, because what does this object take for a response? Our response takes a list of exchange rate DTO. So turn this sell merchant DTO object, right? Sell merchant DTO into an exchange rate DTO object, and then go ahead and add it into the list inside exchange rate DTO list, right? So now we're keeping track of a list of different merchants. And then at the very end, we're going to say, hey, now that we have a list of all matching stores, every single store that matches is inside this list that we're about to return. If the exchange rate, if the exchange rate DTO list dot get merchants dot size is more than 0, so that means if one or more store matches, then we're going to return the exchange rate DTO list. Otherwise, if there's nothing else and it doesn't match anything, then we're going to go ahead and throw the exception the store does not exist. Does that kind of make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Gene, you
I have a
understand
question.
this?
Yeah, but I have
Okay.
a question. So
Yeah, what's up?
If so the if so okay, so we are returning the exchange rate DTO list. Why isn't in the method signature? Why are we not returning in line 46? Why are we not returning a list? Let me write it down.
So there are two ways to do it. You're right. You could straight up go ahead and return this. Right? You could do that.
That's what I'm asking.
Right? But I chose to return it like this because there's a difference. Let me show you an example. Okay? When you go ahead and do this, what you're going to end up getting is something like this. It's going to look like this. right? Which is fine, all right. If you process it, technically it's valid. It's okay, right? But the thing is, I want it to look a little nicer. I want it to have a name. Notice how I named this list merchants, right? And so when I put it inside a object like this, Spring will convert it a little bit differently. And instead, it will do something like this. Oh. It should work. You could have an array of this, right? Hey, Greg, isn't this technically valid? You can have an array name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're missing an outer bracket. So, actually,
But anyways, it's supposed to return something like this. We're gonna see exactly how it returns it in just a minute, but you can kind of see the difference, right? It gives the array a name basically, so it looks a little nicer, right? So let me go ahead and rerun this, and you'll see it. I swear you can give an array a name. I might be mistaken though. But let's go ahead and hit it. And you can see, yeah, there it is. So see how like over here it says merchants instead, right? And then inside of the array, it gives out a list of all merchants that are similar. So let's do.
Yeah, so it was just missing that outer bracket.
Yeah. Small business names, 6,000. And so let's just say we're going to change it so that it's. So instead of 0.8, we're going to do 0.5. So even names that aren't very similar, they're still going to match, right? And give me 2 store names that you can think of that kind of have a similar name, a little bit. Can you guys think of any?
Sunglass Hut, Pizza Hut.
That still might be a little too far off, but let's try it off. Let's do that. Hut, right? Space Hut. And you'll see like a whole bunch of stores. All the stores that technically are 0.5 or higher, you'll see that it returns Ace Hardware, even though it says Hut. Advanced Auto Parts, AMC Theaters, and Taylor. I think they all contain some semblance of a space in the word H, maybe T. And that's why, right?
Yeah.
And so as we up it and make it more strict, right? If I change it back to 0.8, right? And I put space Hut, I think nothing will return. You'll see that in just a minute here. Yeah, you'll see it says 404 not found, right? We can't, that's not valid. So, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm really worried because I'm kind of getting it kind of makes sense, but not really kind of vibe from you guys. I just want to, like, while we're still here on the same session, before I dive into like more strict things, like, oh, let's get the eBay stuff working and let's dive into databases, right? I want to really make sure you guys understand what's going on.
If that's not too monotonous, I sure would appreciate that, because I admit that I am that person that you're talking about.
Okay.
It's
So,
me.
what specifically do you not understand, or is there like overall you don't understand? Because I can break it down step by step, but you have to stop me when something doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I've just realized that in my learning journey of learning Java in Spring, I'm realizing that I'm learning everything very compartmentalized. Like I'm not learning, I don't know if it's the way my brain is or my approach to learning, but I'm learning everything in pieces as opposed to the order that I feel like I should be learning it. And I don't really know what to do with that.
So why don't we do this? Okay, so over here, we're going to break down how this endpoint works step by step, and then you're going to tell me when something doesn't make sense, yeah? Okay. So the first thing that we do is we hit the endpoint store /store percentage that you can see right here, right? And inside the store percentage, we're going to go ahead and take in a parameter of store name, and that's the store that we want to go ahead and compare it against. We have to find it in the list, right? So you can see over here, I named it store name, and we're looking for a store that has the word space hut inside of it. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. And we're expecting a response of something called exchange rate DTO list. And inside here, inside exchange rate DTO list, we expect a list of something called merchants. So you can see over here when I hit something like Safeway. Let me give you like a valid response, something that's 200. You can see over here that this is a JSON, but the first item inside is an array called merchants. You can see that, right? And merchants is an array, right? Because I literally called it a list. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask you, there is something that overall I'm having a hard time grasping is, would you mind touching on and elaborating on how DTOs work, the whole data transfer thing?
Sure. So you have a JSON here, right? And so the problem with a JSON is that it can get very messy very quickly, right? Like this is a very small JSON; it only has 18 lines. But if I give you something super complex with like a 1,000-line JSON, a 2,000-line JSON, could you imagine if you had to go ahead and go like, if everything was a string? So you got back this giant string, and you're like, okay, turn this string to JSON, and then JSON dot parse merchant, and then dot parse max limit, dot parse whatever. It would be everywhere, right? It's very unstructured, right? So the whole idea behind a DTO is, if I get a DTO, or if I get a JSON, or if I'm sending a JSON, it doesn't matter, right? I can turn this into this giant JSON into a DTO, an object called a DTO. So instead of saying something like, hey, list JSON object merchants is equal to like JSON dot parse merchants dot parse items, right? What I can just do is tell it, hey, this is a DTO, and give me the and everything that's inside an array called merchants, turn it into a list, and Spring will automatically do that for you. Does that kind of make sense?
Because the list is more manageable in terms of big data.
That's right, yeah. So basically, Spring will automatically deal with it for you. If there is an array called merchants, Spring will say, hey, look, this merchants over here matches this array name called merchants, then these two must be the same. So everything inside here, all these JSONs, must be what's inside this list.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Yeah. And so, not just that, but, okay, let's take a look at inside the list. Inside the list, there are individual JSON objects, right? And inside the JSON objects, we have max limit, store name, gift card image, percentage, and min limit, right? So, if we look at the list, what is it a list of? It's a list of another DTO called exchange rate DTO, right? And inside exchange rate, we have store name, percentage, min limit, max limit, and gift card image. Exactly like what is matched over here, right? Now, we might be missing the whole min limit and max limit, right? Because we didn't set it ever, but some of them have max limit. Oh, it is there, max limit and min limit, right? Store name and gift card and stuff like that. So we don't have to do like JSON.set store name, JSON.set percentage, JSON.set whatever, and then put that into JSON.add into this list, right? We can just go ahead and set it inside the object. So Spring will automatically do all the conversions for us. Does that make sense?
It does. And then also, I forget what file it was. I don't know if it was the controller, the DTO. It was like there was a for loop that was being had, and there was
that's in the service class, right? Because remember, the service class holds all the logic, right? So
yeah,
go
the
ahead and
business
open that.
logic, yeah.
But before we get into that, let's first take it step by step, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But store that in the back of your mind. the first thing that happens is we make sure that the store name that we get. So the store name that we get here. Remember, we got this over here in the request param. The store name, if it is null or empty, we want to throw a new exception and say that the store name is invalid, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the store name is valid, then we want to return then we want to go ahead and go inside of the service class and click get store percentage. So let's do that. Okay, so this is where the logic happens, right? Inside here, we say, hey, we have a store name, and the first step we're going to do is we're going to create a new exchange rate DTO list, right? Exactly what I was talking to you above. So right now, we have an exchange rate DTO list that we're going to return to the user. This list is still empty because we haven't compared all the merchants yet. We haven't found all the merchants, but it's what we're going to return, right? So we created the variable. And then, yeah.
So why are we not using merchants? Why are we creating a new exchange DTO list? Why are we not using the word merchant itself?
Oh, this the sell merchant DTO? Because the sell merchant DTO
Sell merchant, so when you go back to exchange DTO list, the name of the merchant's name, why are we not using that? Why are we creating a new exchange DTO list object?
because over here, like how would you do it? For example, if you want to do it this way, then what you would end up doing is you would say, hey, return a list of exchange rate DTO, and then you do something like exchange rate DTO DTO list equals new linked list, right? So you end up doing something like that, and you could. But remember how I told you beforehand that I wanted in the very beginning something that says merchants instead of just an array. So that's why I'm putting it inside a DTO, so that the name merchants comes before the array, so the array has a name.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So now we have a variable of a DTO that we're going to return back, that we're going to return to the user. We're going to go ahead and hit this method. And this method is going to go ahead and go to Card Cash, and it's going to get a list of every single merchant that Card Cash allows you to sell and all the data inside of it. Right? So let's take a look at the response of what Card Cash returns back to us. They give us a list of all the sell merchants, of all the merchants that they allow us to sell. And inside this DTO, it contains the name, the sell percentage, the limit, and the image of the gift card, right? So that's very cool. Now we have what Card Cash is willing to sell us. And so Mo, we're going to go into the for loop, like you said, and we're going to loop through every single merchant that they're going to sell. And Mo, you said you had a question here, so what would that question be?
Could you remove the hover that you're on?
Sure.
The line that says exchange, I don't know if it's a syntax thing for me, but that's kind of tripping me up. Exchange rate DTO next to exchange rate DTO.
Which, is it this one, line 50?
54, I think.
54. This one.
Yeah, what's happening right there?
Okay, so basically, well, I'm going to first go through here, and then I'm going to explain what this line does. Basically, we're going to get the exact store name that Card Cash uses, and then we're going to compare between our name and Card Cash's name, right? So that makes sense to you guys, hopefully. Should be pretty basic. And if it's above 0.8, which is what we consider to be matching, we're going to add it to the list. So over here, remember, Mo, we're returning a list of exchange rate DTO. Do you remember that, Mo? We're returning?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because it might be too big, and so we need to put it in a list.
Right, yes, exactly. So the list is a type of what? We're returning a list of exchange rate DTO. So right now, in our hand, we hold something called a sell merchant DTO. A sell merchant DTO, unfortunately, isn't an exchange rate DTO. Those two are different objects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that? So what we're doing is, inside our exchange rate DTO, we have a constructor that turned the sell merchant DTO into an exchange rate DTO. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
we're turning the sell merchant DTO into an exchange rate DTO, and we're storing this as a new variable called exchange rate DTO. And this new variable, we're now going to go ahead and add it inside the list of exchange rate DTOs that we're going to return to the user.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. So now that we know that, for example, this store is matching, we want to go ahead and return it back to the user as one of the items in the array, right? And so if you remember, for this method, we are returning an object called exchange rate DTO list. Do you see that we're returning this?
Mm-hmm.
And so inside this object, we're returning, what are we returning? It holds a list of exchange rate DTO, right? So this is exactly what's inside this list. So if you take a look at it, because inside here it's a list of exchange rate DTO, and what do we have? We have something called a sell merchant DTO. Notice that exchange rate DTO and sell merchant DTO are different object types, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't add a sell merchant DTO inside a list of exchange rate DTO because those are two completely different objects. Java's going to freak out, right? It's not like JavaScript where you can add anything and anything. Java is very strict, right? Java says, hey, a exchange rate DTO is not the same as a sell merchant DTO. So what I did was inside our exchange rate DTO, I created a constructor. And what does the constructor do? The constructor takes apart the sell merchant DTO and turns it into an exchange rate DTO, right? So on line 54, once we know that two store names match close enough, we're going to take the sell merchant DTO and use the constructor to turn it into an exchange rate DTO, right? And now because we have an exchange rate DTO, it matches exactly the list of exchange rate DTOs over here of what we're going to return back to the user. And we're going to say, hey, inside the exchange rate DTO list that we have, go ahead and add that exchange rate DTO that we just converted to. And now we're all good. Does that make sense?
It does. And when I rewatch this video over and over again, it will make more sense.
Okay, yeah. So, actually, you know what? You know what we can do? We can turn on a debugger. That might actually help you out a lot. There's a cool thing called a debugger. And say, for example, if I'm really confused at someone's code, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? What I can do is I can turn on, do you see how, like, if I click on the right-hand side, if I double-click or single-click, right? I can add these red dots at random places. So what this red dot means is that, hey, instead of clicking the play button, if I click this bug button, Java's going to go ahead and run, and it's going to stop at the red dots that I tell it to stop at, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to take it from the top, and I'm going to go ahead and add a red dot here, okay? And so I'm gonna click the bug button, and it's going to go ahead and run it in debug mode. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and send it, right? And so now we're in debug mode. So over here, the first thing that happens, you can see that I sent in the store name as Safeway, right? So you can see inside over here, we have a variable over here called store name. And what's inside that variable? It's called Safeway, right? Okay, we're going to step to the next step. Now we have the next step. The next step gives us a response called card percentage DTO. And you can see over here, it says response, and it hasn't gotten there yet, but let's go ahead and click next step. Oh, okay. So now we have something called response, and you can see over here it says response, and inside the response, let's click on into response. You can see it says a list of sell merchant DTO. This is what card cache gives us. So response, you can see it says sell merchants and matches, and inside here it gives us a list of all the merchants that card cache has, right? So if I click into sell merchant DTO, you can see each DTO contains a name, sell percentage, limit, and image. Over here, the name, sell percentage, limit, and image, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking the code step by step, so hopefully it makes more sense to you. Okay. Next step. It's going to say, hey, let's take the first item inside this huge list of responses, right? There's 650 merchants here. Let's take item 0 of that list, right? And let's call it exact store name, right? So if I step over this, the exact store name, the first item we're going to compare in the list is called 1-800-Flowers. If we look at the sell merchants, take a look at the first item in the list, 1-800-Flowers, right? You see that? Right? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and compare 1-800-Flowers, because right now we're sorting the distance, right? 1-800-Flowers with Safeway, right? So let's go ahead and step past it. And you can see that the similarity between Safeway and 1-800-Flowers is 0.5, which is not higher than 0.8, right? It doesn't match. So it's going to go ahead and skip through. Notice how I just skipped through, right? Okay. Let me add a little red dot here. So that let's skip to a place where it does match, right? So let me go ahead and do that. Oh, look at that. It just found a merchant that matches it, right? So the exact store name is called Fairway, right? But we're looking for a Safeway. But because the distance is 0.81, it's close enough. It's close enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the object called sell merchant detail. This is what Card Cache gives to us, right? It has the name, the sell percentage, the limit, and the image, right? And so we're turning this object called sell merchant detail right here into an exchange rate detail, right? Notice how we're passing it in. So this sell merchant detail gets passed in and it gets turned into an exchange rate detail right here. You see this new object? And so now we're going to add this exchange rate detail into the list inside our exchange rate detail list, right? So notice how inside our exchange rate detail list, which is what we're going to return to the user, this list is so far is empty. If we step over this, look at that. It just added it in. Now the list size is 1. It contains the word Fairway, right? So now it's going to continue, and it found the word Safeway. Safeway is 0.96. It's pretty much identical, right? And so it's going to do the same thing, and it's going to add it inside the list, right? Etc. And so now that it's done, because the size is more than 0, we're going to return the list, and you can see that we have the merchants, Fairway, and Safeway.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. That's why I suggest you guys use debugger. I'll show you guys. Okay, so these are called breakpoints. Put the red dots right next to where you want to stop. Okay, so if and then you click the debug button. So once it starts, go ahead and click send, right? So it starts the program. And then there are a few buttons. This button means resume program. It means keep on running until it hits the next red dot, right? And so the next red dot will be right here. So keep on running until it hits it in here. Over here, it means go ahead and step to the next step. So I want you to hit to line. Right now I'm on line 47. I want to hit to line 48. Click this button. It goes to line 48. Right. Step into means like, hey, inside line 48, there's another method called get all store rates. Right. And I don't know what get all store rates does. For example, if I really, really want to dig into what this thing does, right? If I click into step into, then notice how it steps into the method get all store rates. So then I can step by step, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And say, for example, if I'm done with get all store rates, I want to go back to my original method. Click step out, and it'll go back, and it'll say, hey, we completed the get all store rates. We have a response now. So that's how you step by step kind of understand how the computer thinks, and that it's called a debugger. And everyone uses it, even professionals use it, because when you get to like industry code, right, you end up having methods that are like thousands of lines long, hundreds of lines long, and each one has like hundreds of different methods, right? And so it's impossible for you to look at it and understand what's going on sometimes. Sometimes you have to like step by step go through and understand exactly what the computer is thinking and how it works. But That's like another very valuable tool in your arsenal. So sometimes, like when I'm explaining it, obviously it makes sense to you, and to some people it takes a little longer, right? And Mo, that's totally fine, right? Because it can get very confusing at times. But using a debugger, you can pretty much see exactly what a computer is thinking step by step and go from there. And so hopefully that's a tool that you guys can also use to kind of break down very complex operations into something very simple.
Thank you for this very comprehensive breakdown.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can stop there for now. I think this is very interesting for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and commit this code just so you guys can, because right now we did complete this ticket right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add it. So added response for similar store names instead of exact match, right? Commit to main and push. Perfect. And so now you guys should all have this code. Cool. So I think I'll call it for today for that part. Are there any other questions that you guys want answered before we end today's session?
So I remember at first when we were starting, you told me the cache busts when I was trying to get access to the merchants' names.
Yes, yeah. What's up with the cache?
Yeah, how did you get that? Was that on your side?
I will show you. Okay. So let me share my screen again. This was code that they did. So over here, if I go into inspect and I go to network. So right now I'm capturing all of the communications that go that are going through my computer right now, right? So if I go to cardcache.com, right? You can see that CardCache first generates a session, right? So you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Right? And what's the second thing? It goes to sell, and then what does it say? Cache equals bust. So I'm just copying and pasting exactly what they gave me. Yeah. Nothing too special.
But now, when we pull from the code that we just committed, we don't have to do all this. Just run the code and.
That's right, because, okay, let's take a look at my code here. Let's see how it works, right? And I'll show you. Let's take a look at how it works. So over here, remember in this line, it gets all the store rates, so it automatically hits card cache for you, right? So let's dive into this code a little bit. Right? What does it do? First thing is it generates a session, right? That's exactly what you're doing. And how does it generate a session? It passes in the XCC header, and then what does it get? It gets the set cookie. That's very important, right? And it returns. So now that we've generated a session, what do? We go ahead and add the XCC header, and we add in the session cookie that we just generated, right? And then what's the next step? The next step says, hey, go ahead and create a new header and go to this URL, constants API.cardcache.getRates. Now what is getRates? Production API cardcache.com/cell ?cache equals bust, right? And then using that, give me the response and turn it into a response entity of card cache processing a percentage response, which is a list of all the cell merchant details, right? So in a very convoluted way, it's exactly doing what you're doing, but automatically. That's what Spring does, right? It's supposed to be able to hit all these APIs instantly, very quickly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, all right. Any other questions? Cool. All right. In this case, then, thank you so much for joining. Feel free to build on it a little bit more. Play around with it. Really, really understand what's going on. And if there's something that you guys don't understand, go ahead and DM me, and I'll hop on a one-on-one and try to explain it step by step. use the debugger tool, see what's inside the program's memory and how it works step by step, and hopefully that could also give you some context clues. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining. I'm gonna download this also and obviously upload it on YouTube so you guys can rewatch it. But yeah, best of luck, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.